At 5:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Are there any agenda adjustments?
No, not this time.
We're gonna move to public comment, and I'll note that public comment is for anything other than zoning right now. We're gonna, if you have anything else to speak about the agenda, and then when we go into the zoning, we'll have a separate public comment for that. So if there's anything besides zoning to be heard or said, the floor is yours. Hearing none, okay, moving on to the zoning and subdivision bylaw amendments. We'll go ahead and open it up at 5:31.
Thank you so much. With the trustees here, can we go line by line with the trustees, the general overview, what's your pleasure? I guess
What did you do the other night? I went to the meeting the other night.
I gave kind of the greatest hits on Monday night.
Let's do the greatest hits, that's okay. Carl?
Yeah, yeah. So overall, as a general preface, this is not a very significant zoning update. The zoning update is actually pretty minor. With this, because of S-100, the new state Homes for Everyone Act, there's a lot of changes we need to make, and we already had a backlog of things over the last year or so that we wanted to make. We didn't want to conflate the two issues and stick everything in a pot together. So the board decided, not me, the board decided to clean the table, clean the plate first, get through our existing zoning changes, and then tackle S-100 in a separate zoning change. So the existing changes are mostly derived from DRB. So planning rights regulations, you go to a DRB hearing with the developer has a different take or a different way to interpret the bylaw, and the DRB says, yeah, they got a point on that, you should probably clean that language up. So a lot of what's here is actually cleaning language up, newer language, or language that the DRB said, hey, planning should fix this, so planning has gone ahead and fixed this. Etienne's a lucky enough guy, he attends most DRB meetings, and he's seen where the DRB has interpretation questions, and these are some of the things that are a good bunch of what's in here is fixing DRB interpretation issues. Going to the greatest hits. So the biggest part in here really is section 206. So last year, 2022 in the fall, there was the section 207, the historic preservation criteria, and that really strengthened our zoning requirements in the commercial core of the downtown, Bridge Street, Pleasant Street, Portland Street, Upper and Lower Main Street, just the downtown sections, like no further than the library. This is the kind of companion change that brings some of these same, not historic, but design criteria, clarifications and enhancements to greater parts of the village. So for example, we're regulating things like garage placement for the first time. We had an application to DRB where the application for a couple of duplexes or duplex was just going to be 2 duplexes. Actually, this could be nothing but garages facing one of the village streets. And the DRB did not love that because they want a door, some sort of pedestrian feel, not just garages facing it's not a fire station, it's supposed to be a house or home. So one of the changes in here is regulating garages for the first time, requiring a 5-foot setback from the house, and a sizing requirement that the garage can't be so much bigger than the house itself. So there are things like that in section 206 and other design criteria things. The 2 big expansions are in 206 for the first time. 206 has always been applicable to the high density residential zone. It's going outside of that. So that's like the core of the village, like right behind like Arthur's, Black Cap, which is now Black Cap, and those neighborhoods like Winter Street, that's high density. Now it's going to medium density. So this would obviously impact like Maple Street and Wilkins and Wobbin Street and Lower Congress Street, those areas, those are medium density residential. Those requirements stretch out there for the first time. But one of the changes is additional uses being caught in this. It was only multifamily and the high density residential that had design criteria before. Now it's being expanded to duplexes. So if you're building duplexes, you have design criteria to look at if you're in medium density residential. So if you're building a single family home in the village, none of this applies to you. But if you're a developer building duplexes, like Pope Meadow is a development of duplexes, for example, you know, that's a medium density, was a medium density residential until a few years ago. And the neighbors did a zoning change. That will probably go back, is my guess, as Bob probably knows. So those are the kind of things that would catch going forward. So that's really the meat and potatoes of the zoning change. Other things in here, there's some flood rule changes I have to make after doing a week-long training class as the village and town flood zone administrator. I know, there's some interest in the parking rules, at select board on Monday night. So section 450 in here, the new Homes for Everyone Act, and this is the only Homes for Everyone Act zoning change that's in this packet, is towns can no longer require more than one parking space per dwelling unit. This zoning bylaw update makes that change to comply with state law. The state says no more than one parking space per unit, regardless of how many bedrooms. That's what our zoning says now. Yes, Bob?
No more than one required, but a developer can make as many as he wants.
Correct. We don't have like a cap on it, so
Okay.
if a developer, was building a 10-unit building of 3 bedrooms each, they might want to do more than 10 parking spaces because 3-bedroom units are gonna generally have at least 1, maybe 2 cars, if not 3, so they can do more, but the town can only require 1. Other than that, we have, the other thing here is, do you guys hear dumpsters on Thursday morning? No? Yeah, you know you do. I do as well. This zoning change prohibits dumpsters in the village and residential portions of the village, so, every Thursday morning, starting about 3:45 AM as of last week, through 6 in the morning, the commercial Casella hauler comes, picks up the dumpsters and drops them, bang, bang, bang all morning. The difference is, there's 2 different trucks that run the Casella routes. There's the commercial truck that does the dumpsters, there's the residential truck that does the totes. If residential properties switch from dumpsters to totes, there's no banging on it every Thursday morning, so we're trying to do the zoning. I can't fix everything that already exists, so there's things that are grandfathered there, but it's more. And generally, like the apartment buildings that are in a residential area, they'll sign up for dumpsters, they don't know any better, and they're not there, the owner's not there at 4 o'clock in the morning listening to the banging. If we can keep more residential properties on totes instead of dumpsters, everyone will have a better quality of life on Thursday morning.
Now, is this gonna be retroactive to the buildings that are already there?
No, everything, if you have a structure, if you have a fence around like a dumpster, it's grandfathered. This is the structure, it's there, zoning's always forward looking. However, a dumpster without a structure, without a pad or without a fence is not set in place, it moves when you drop it. So if I feel the need to, I can push that person to, hey, your dumpster, it's not a permanent structure, it moves every week. Get rid of your dumpster, go to totes, if they're one of the people that's disrupting the neighborhood.
I'm just wondering about some of these big buildings, like the one behind me, that's 50 units, they're gonna have 50 totes, where they're gonna put them.
They're already approved with the dumpster location of those,
Okay.
next to those, so, yeah, the totes will be a larger enclosure, but you can do that. For example, Pizza on Main doesn't have a dumpster out back, they have totes in their enclosure. Doable. And it's a noontime pickup versus a 5 AM pickup. And the reason the commercial, I've worked with Casella a lot, more than I want to admit over the last year. The reason the commercial truck, the dumpster truck comes earlier is dumpsters are generally in downtown settings, and downtown settings, they fill up with parking, and then the truck can't get in, can't get to the dumpster, so they go really early. It's like plowing the streets, you go really early to get in and get out, where the people get there, and then everyone's good. So I think it's a fair game. If they want to come really early to downtown Morrisville, you choose to live in an apartment on Portland Street, you're in your dumpsters, you chose to live in the downtown. But if you're living on Cherry Avenue, or if you're living on Howard Street, or I can hear it on Maple Street, obviously, you didn't choose to live right downtown, you're still getting woken up by the commercial dumpsters in residential zones, so that's one of the fixes in here.
I think that they make more noise with their klaxon horn backing up than they do dropping boxes, but that's me.
I never hear the ones, I never hear the beeping, I only hear the banging.
It's the banging.
The banging is
Well,
really
maybe they
loud.
don't turn the horn on,
I don't remember the verbiage, but it seemed, I got to thinking that maybe it was a little too specific. What's the sentence? You've got a couple reasons there, and that was it, to have one, if you're in that.
Section 502. You're allowed to have a dumpster, like if you're like doing renovations, you're adding, doing renovation, you're gutting a house, you're allowed to have a dumpster, obviously. But it's the residential portions of the village, let me find section 502. So it is,
I just think there may be some instances where somebody wants to have a temporary dumpster brought in, clean out their basement and get it gone, you know, is there?
it says with the exception of
General
short-term
enough.
use for construction activity, yes, I'm not gonna bust someone's shop on having a dumpster for cleaning
I
out the
didn't
basement.
want you to be faced with some little, you know.
Generally, I don't
Picking stuff that does happen.
agree, 1 year is generally the timeline when the
Yeah.
structure becomes temporary or permanent and where I have enforcement ability. So if someone's got a dumpster out there, clean out their basement or do a renovation. Once it's there a year, then I can talk to them about it. If they're still working at it, and it's obvious like the house is gonna be complete soon. I have better things to do, Carl, I really do. But if the dumpster's not there for a year and the house is mothballs, I'll talk to them about it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't thinking about the year, that's all.
Yep.
What about the composting? Is there still any changes with that?
Laura put something in last zone change. So under F, it's in there, section 502H, sorry. The location of trash, recycling, compost containers, dumpsters shall be screened from views of streets and surrounding properties and maintained in a sanitary manner. This is a new language here. The use of dumpsters shall only be allowed in the central business, commercial, industrial, and hospital zones. Dumpsters are prohibited in all residential zones, with the exception of short-term use for construction activity. That's a new language they proposed. Again, if you guys don't like it, as what we generally do, if you like 90% of the zoning change, you make a motion to approve at your next regular meeting, not the joint meeting, next meeting, to approve what you like and say, with the exception of H and I, you'll leave those things behind and you're free. You don't make the aim for perfection, then not getting it. Yeah, thank you. So you approve what you want to
I knew
approve.
where you were
Yeah, you leave a couple things behind, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't want you to do it all over again.
Yeah, planning gets 90% approved, I think they're gonna be pretty happy here.
So when this S100 takes effect and they put in multifamily duplexes, are those all gonna be, they won't be able to have dumpsters, right?
Correct, totally. Well, if this passes,
Yeah.
if you don't cut it, leave it on the cutting room floor. Okay. Other than dumpsters, that's section 505. 510, we have two small kind of carrots being added to our conservation subdivision bylaw, and it's to encourage developers to hook up to village sewer, village water. Right now, for example, the Beacon Hill developments in the village, they're using well and septic. In the village, our goal of planning is to build the dense development in the village and keep the countryside rural. So we love to see those septic systems not be used for septic and be used for housing, which we need. So the two carrots we've added here are, if someone is going to hook up to village water and sewer, they can do townhouse style development. So it eliminates the side setbacks. So what, even though the feds describe like townhouses like Nick Don's is building behind Fred's, those are actually 6 single family homes each, separate meters, party walls, it's a single family home. We're allowing that style development elsewhere to have the village water and sewer and not requiring the side setbacks between houses. The other part is that they're on either water or sewer, which is generally just water, village water. We're allowing a density bonus. So they can build a little more densely if they hook up to one of your services, which is you generally see water, not sewer if you have one or the other. So that's in the conservation subdivision bylaw. After that, we're revising some definitions, adding a few, deleting one. That's pretty much housekeeping stuff, and I'm happy to go through any other questions you might have. Oh, yeah, so I'm sorry, yeah, section 207. Thank you. This is why he's the chair. This is a good boss. Section 207, the one thing the big change last year, it's on here. The one change to it is we're adding Park Street to the village section of Park Street, not the part that goes up the hill, the elementary school. That's being added to the historic preservation criteria. So any new development on Park Street will have to go through those higher historic preservation standards that regulate things like trim width, building materials, windows, which is fenestration, all the fun stuff that goes along with building something that's historic looking.
But it does go with Copley Avenue towards the school.
Copley Avenue is not on the list right now. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen in the future, but Copley Avenue is not on that list. Copley's just generally the section 207 is just in a commercial core, large apartment buildings, commercial buildings. Copley Ave right now is really single family homes. We don't have section 207 on the single family home street, so that's probably why it's never been added, because it's not really what it's designed to do. Would you agree with that or not?
I would say at the time, the intention was to protect the streetscape of the commercial core. We've added Park Street because Park Street actually is seeing development stress. There are a couple of empty lots, big empty lots.
Yeah.
And I would say that on Monday, the select board, a resident of Copley Ave, did highlight that 2 of the properties on that street are for sale and could be large apartment units as well. So there was some concern that perhaps it should be added in the future to echo your question.
Yes, Bob.
So the historical design criteria, will that apply to only houses, buildings right on the street? Or like down here where the guy put the Huntington home in the backyard?
I believe it used to comply it used to really direct it just to what's on the street, but that's kind of gone out of the bylaws. Really, it's the whole lot now.
It's the whole lot,
It's the whole lot, yes.
so you can't clump down a double wide anymore,
Correct.
Well, I think
unless it's historic. Yeah.
a single family home application or multi family duplex and all.
Yeah, you have to be more specific with the example probably.
Well, the example down there is we put a duplex back there, a Huntington home duplex. So it would have to comply.
Jersey Heights is not in the.
No, I'm not talking about that Jersey Heights, I'm talking about Park Street. Where the
Oh,
B and B
yes.
used to be. and
Yeah,
down
so-
across from the-
Yeah, in the future, even though it's a nice house back there, in the future, it'd have to go through the historic preservation criteria and need it, yes. That is a nice house back there, but it doesn't comply with 207.
Mhm.
The
So what do
DRB,
you think
used-
in the future will happen?
yeah, the DRB used to enforce the stuff that you can see from the street and let the stuff in the back go. Planning really said, we're gonna treat everything the same and have everything regulated.
I mean, that was clear feedback we got from people who attended those meetings last year, quite a few meetings, is that we might as well just treat them all the same, because you can see the building in the back from the street.
Couple of updates for you guys on, when you're back on the water and sewer piece. One is that, just our wastewater ordinance today requires that if you develop where we have sewer, you have to hook on, so they couldn't really install a septic system in that case.
What's the footage? Is it 500 feet or?
I don't even remember.
The town used to have a stand matching ordinance, and the town hasn't had that since you updated yours. I think it's a discussion at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But your ordinance, I think, is a couple hundred feet or something like that.
It's, look, I remember what it was, because when I was doing my subdivision. The lots closest to the street had to be hooked up to water and sewer, but the lots in the back, I could have had a septic system.
I could be wrong.
But
I think
we've
it's
changed
500.
that
I
since,
think we changed
potentially.
Yeah.
But we can get to the number, and the two things we'll be bringing to the trustees in the next few months. One is we'll be bringing the water ordinance to them for the first time, we've never had one, and that will likely require, if there's a water line, that hook onto that as well. And then the last piece that we're gonna be bringing to them is, if, that you can't have town sewer if you're not on town water, because we have no way to force collection of a bill.
To meter it, yeah.
There's no way to collect the bill. What do we shut off?
We meter their water.
Yeah.
But if they don't pay sewer, we can't
We
shut
can't
it off.
Gotcha.
Other than put a lien on their property for 4 years. So they haven't approved those last two things, but those are just giving you a heads up of things that are coming to them here in the next few months.
Good to know.
Some cleanup.
One of the things we'll have to talk to the trustees on at some point is when we do F100, and this is not the zoning update, we're talking spring, summer, whenever it gets done, we have to determine really a sewer service and really a service area, water and sewer for the village. And say if you're inside this area where hookups can happen, you're allowed 4 units per every lot. You're allowed 4 units per lot. So any house in Fairwood Parkway can have 4 units now. But I need to make sure what we have for us, we have a sewer service management area right in our zoning where sewer can go and not go. And I've always worked closely with the village on that. We may want to play with that. We may want to make sure what's there is feasible. I don't want to have the SSMA across a ravine and we can't get sewer there with a pump station, for example. Or you guys may want to, if you guys understanding, if you all don't want to extend sewer lines into the town right now, you may want to attract the SSMA back into the village boundaries. I mean, everything's on the table, so.
That's kind of where our thinking is until things sugar off with the state.
Yeah.
I suspect the next 2 or 3 years, the state's gonna be tweaking this every single year.
Correct.
And I think my read of the trustees currently, not made any decisions, is that unless until that we get clarity about how much mandates are coming, and what they really are gonna end up at, it doesn't make sense for us to make it easy for the state to override us.
I agree with that.
Essentially, so that doesn't mean forever, and we haven't made a decision on that, so this is just me telling you what I think the role of the trustees is. That's the dialogue we'll be having.
Do you give us an example of that kind of overriding?
Well, just the zoning overlay they've done and the parking overlay they've done, S100. So they're basically taking authority away from you all and telling you what you must comply with. And I think that's gonna change every year for the next few years, because they're gonna find out, one, that it's not as effective as they thought it was gonna be at spurring housing. And two, that there's other causes that, they didn't want to face, and so, but they're not gonna want to admit that. So then they're gonna ramp up, the mandates even more. That's what I think is gonna happen.
He's basically taking away zoning control and basically running the zoning on where the sewer lines go. We lost that control over there's gonna be quad uses in Fairwood Parkway on Jersey Way and those established with Wilkins Wild and single family neighborhoods. And we've lost that control. The state has taken that away via mandate.
We'll have to have that conversation, and we'll invite you guys, of course, for that, but just be aware.
I think Scott's giving you a good recommendation there for later discussions.
Any other presentation?
That is pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions or anything you wanna add.
About this, no?
You do have a member of the public on Zoom. Alexander's is on. I don't know if, Mr. Chair, if you want to see if he wants to talk.
Sure, Alexander, can you hear us? Do you have anything to add?
Not really, just was curious to see what comments might come out today if there were any.
Sure, okay.
Thanks, Alex.
What do you think of the parking?
I I don't know, my read of the intent behind the state makes sense in larger municipalities where there's a trend toward providing housing, and you don't necessarily need to provide all the parking because there are lots of people who want to live there who don't actually need a parking place. And we should recognize that. It might not be appropriate here.
Less appropriate here.
Well, the point you said that you guys were talking about, there's no restriction on how many parking spaces they can put, so it's a lot easier to pave something over than to put in a green space. And that's, kind of my issue is like, what do we have for creating any green space? Is there anything?
There's actually in section 206 here, one of the new rules which you like, which is the John Meyer rule. We had a green space requirement that said if you can, the developer can get certain benefits by creating green space, and when we got our site plan, it said, here are the setbacks, there's a green space, and like, well, you can't build in the setbacks anyway, you can't really double take credit for that green space, so. In here instead, we've actually got around that kind of bogus interpretation of what was intended here. And under section 206 I, outdoor space, all new dwelling, this is existing, I'll let you know when the new stuff is there. All new dwelling unit, monthly family usage shall include 24 square feet of exterior outdoor space per unit that may be comprised of any combination of the following: common roof deck, a common area deck or porch. New, a front lawn located outside the required setbacks, and back to the old language, or a private deck, porch, or patio that is attached or adjacent to the dwelling unit. So for the first time, we're allowing a front lawn to be part of that green space per unit, or maybe a larger multi-unit green space. But just for clarifying, get it out of the setbacks, don't try to screw us.
I don't think that the choice will be green space or parking. I think what you'll see is developers will not largely build a lot more than they're required to and keep that capital, and they'll make their buildings bigger. They'll fill up the space of buildings, and what they'll rely on is that there'll be publicly available parking for the overflow. I think that's what they'll say, hey, you're only mandating me to build one per space, so I'm building one, and everybody can park on the street.
Yeah, especially.
And in the winter, you're gonna be telling people because you gotta plow the streets and and again, and I totally agree with at the end, in Winooski and Burlington, where they had Green Mountain Transit with regular bus service, a lot of people don't have that second car and lifestyles support that. Rural Vermont doesn't have that infrastructure. RCT is great for what it does. Their kind of Uber style service of vans is awesome. But it's a whole different beast here. So I think you'll just get more building space is what I think you'll get.
I would only offer two other points. One is that I don't think McDonald's and Grand Bank will build inadequate parking and charge $2,000 a month for an apartment. I think they'd be economically, that would not fly with their clientele.
Especially when they're outside downtown. They do provide all the parking they need for their clients when they're outside downtown. The downtown ones, potentially yes, but Nick and Graham, they want to provide on-site parking for their tenants. That's, like by Bob. If Graham doesn't have enough parking there, he's gonna look to add it. He's not gonna say, oh, well, go park downtown. Now when you're charging $2,000 a month is cheap. That's like the 1.5 bedrooms now, 2,500 a month.
And then the other is that they're also trying to protect the affordable housing component. We should not ignore the arguments that I went around with Hutton Street, which is that they do rent to people in Morrisville who don't have cars and don't need them. So I don't know if there's a way to quantify that at the time of permitting of a new building. If LHP builds another big new building downtown, so that it's clear and not kind of a free for all for on-street.
The problem is you quantify the day you're permitting it with the first batch of tenants, but over the
Understood.
time,
It's
it's gonna
management.
change every time.
Yeah, the DRB has the ability to require less parking, require more parking during that process, and other properties. Generally, we see they have one space for every one car, they need one space for every 2 units, so it's really one every other unit. So the post office is eight apartments, is generally 4 to 5 cars, but as Scott points out, it really depends on the management. The 24 unit building on Hutchins Street, I'm projecting 18 cars at most. However, if Alliance, and LHP doesn't do the direct management, they lease it out to Alliance Property Management. Alliance leases out eventually 2 cars, we're screwed. We're in a pickle. So really the management piece is really key. And once you're done with the permit, you can't control that. Well,
That parking underground in those buildings, that, you gotta pay for that. That isn't included in the rent.
oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they're getting $200 or $300 a month for a parking spot, probably have the incentive to build some more parking spots.
It's a nice amenity. It's nice amenity when it's to put a snow outside, just drive out of the, your garage.
If you're in affordable housing, you're probably not paying the extra 200 or 300, you're gonna.
Well, these are affordable.
Space on the windows, okay, yeah.
Is one of my fault.
Any questions? Okay.
We'll close the hearing.
Yep, we'll go ahead and close it at,
Instead of closing, you recess the hearing, I have the select board recess the hearing until your joint meeting next week, which allows you to still take new information from the select board, and then you guys can both close your hearings next week, and then you can vote on it your next regular meeting.
sure.
Does the select board come up with any kind of agenda for the joint meeting?
2 chairs are doing that.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
We're gonna
Yeah, my only
talk about
suggestion,
today. We're gonna talk more tonight.
my suggested additions are making sure you guys are all set on the zoning. I don't wanna go back and forth multiple times. If you guys don't wanna do the parking, tell the select board not to do the parking, we'll both pass out the parking, it's done, then I'll go back and forth between meetings and have multiple dates and hold this stuff. So we'd like to get this on the books. Parking, you talked about the town plan, we talked about that briefly right before the meeting started. And you talk about, the tree planting and the floodway, if you want, on the Oxbow, those are my 3 things that would catch my attention for a joint meeting. And obviously, what you always do at joint meetings, you talk about infrastructure, you talk about, where we're doing a water line before the select board really pays it, so that kind of coordination. And I will be there if you need any help, but I don't intend on talking much unless I'm asked a question. I talk enough.
Okay, we'll go ahead and recess then at 5:58.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, guys.
I'll see you all at the joint meeting, and the intention is your next meeting, your first meeting in November, so you can approve this at your next regular meeting under statute. So you'd be actually acting on this first on November 1st.
Right.
And the select board will be acting on November 6th, so if your motion will, if you act that night, your motion will lead the way. So if you move to approve the zoning as warned, minus section 450 for the parking changes, the select board is either gonna be forced to adopt that same language or approve something different and then have another joint meeting or send me back and forth a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind doing. It's not 42 times.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Anything else for me? All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Guys.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Guys.
Hey, next, approving the minutes of the regular meeting on October 4th.
Thank you. Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? The date on there, you put, I think I read it right. You said October 18th is the joint. In the notes.
In minutes,
Yeah.
we'll fix that then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just. Great, that. Any other discussion?
What date is it? I'm sorry.
10:25, next Wednesday is the joint meeting.
Okay.
All in favor of approving the minutes with the change in the date of the joint meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next, check approval.
Didn't print the right packet.
Is
No, somehow I messed up some pages.
I can pull it up if I need. Motion to approve the check writing.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving, the check register, say aye. Nice have it. Lien approval.
This is, lien for work, to get me paid for work completed, that we've tried to, get payment for at, 147 Bridge Street, which is owned by a company called 147 Bridge LLC.
What's the Stanislaus properties?
Right on the river. The new building.
What, the apartment?
Is it the old
The
spot?
Stanislaus?
Stanislaus, yeah.
The great place.
Sparks on the house.
So
So we-
The one right after the bridge, or where the
Yeah.
and it's going on there.
So we did some work to, change the service out, I think, and he hasn't paid, just as an added note, it's a constant battle every month to get the bills paid too from him.
He's got tenants there, right?
Yeah, but the electric is in their name, the tenant's name, but in between tenants,
But I'm saying, I mean, it's not- he's
Yep.
got no income.
The amount of 644.73.
So this is the only recourse we got is to put a lien on, right? I'll make a motion to put the lien. I'll second it.
How much is it for?
644.73.
Motion been made and seconded, any discussion?
I'm just trying to make sure I know which one we're talking about. You go across the bridge after Tomlinson's, it's one on the left.
Yeah, it's got the commercial space.
The old Sparks house. So the tenants have the electric bill in their name. So you can't shut the electricity.
no, we can shut their electricity off and we can actually shut, like. So no, we can't shut it off for this work right here, but if he has a house meter, we can shut that off, we just have to notice it properly.
And then he's.
We can shut the water and sewer off if we notice it properly, so there are times where we put a door hanger and says, hey, the water's gonna be shut off in 72 hours. And then tenants will usually be like. I'm assuming anyway, they talk to
So
the,
they all have their own water meters too, or?
no,
No.
no, that's why it's 1 meter for the house for water. But the electric, each tenant pays their own,
Now, the charge for that meter, I hope is more than what you charge for a single family home. For the water meter.
probably not, it's,
Depends on the
our
size of the
rates
meter.
are based on the size of the meter.
Yeah.
So
The size.
depending on this, if it's a 1 inch meter, then yes, it would be. But if it's a 5/8 inch meter, then no, it'd be exactly the same,
Then, like I paid $68 for my water fee and sewer fee before I even turned the water on.
correct,
They're
If-
paying the same thing.
yep, that's what. If they have the same exact size meters, you,
You know, is there any way we can demand that any building that has more than one unit have more than 1 meter? Not right now.
no,
Not under our current fee schedule, but we could change the fee
Well,
schedule.
we probably should.
well, I don't know what I would go that route, but I would definitely, we could change.
Well, the thing is, it's the service charge, it's expensive. For me anyway, it's more than my bill.
Yeah.
And it's, when I didn't live here, I paid that and I didn't use any water. And to have a 9 unit there paying the same service charge I am.
Yeah, I don't think we can make them have multiple meters, and that doesn't make sense, but we could make it so that. Meters for an apartment building, or the meter charge for an apartment building could be more or something, but that would be
Yeah,
part of the
it could be.
rate structure,
You know, the charge for the water and sewer is minimum.
correct?
And if you want, you know.
And that was done intentionally, because we wanted a certain percentage to be recurring revenue. But again, those rates were put into effect in 2010, and it's kind of been on the. You know, radar to make those changes at some point in time, to take another look at. The rate structures,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
but anyway,
All right, all in favor of approving the lien for $644.73? All say aye.
we have paperwork to be signed, there are 2 pages, please sign both. I don't have it on, but
Signature. You want the AMI update?
Sure, we'll go ahead and do that now.
So just a brief update, it's been just about, it's been a little more than a year since you authorized us to potentially enter contracts on the AMI, so thought it was probably time to give you an update of what's been going on since then. The long and the short of it is that two really long negotiations, one between VEPSA and the state about how much grant money is coming and to help pay for this, and then the second between VEPSA and the chosen vendor, which is a company called Aclara, for what the cost basis will be for the meters. Both of those have taken forever. Still don't have the agreement on the grant has been approved at the 50% level, that we talked about, when we talked about this a year ago by the state. It has not been approved by the PUC yet, of the Utility Commission. And we expect that soon. And the contract with Aclara has been approved, with the provision that, it falls apart if the PUC doesn't approve it. So they're both essentially done, so the heavy planning has started. We've all been to some meetings, to start laying out, timelines and what will happen and how will it happen. So, Dave and his crew will start doing some make-ready work for the devices that will basically collect all the data and then from nearby meters and then send it into the system, from afar. So that make-ready work will be happening this winter. There'll be trucks riding around town going 2 miles an hour, scaring the hell out of people because they won't know what they are. Basically trying to determine the right bandwidth for FCC permitting, because that's how the data moves across this. So we'll be having to do some notices and social media to let people know when the creepy truck is driving down the road, it's us. So another reason to make sure you're updated, to know if you hear from people like, what's going on? Like, there's these vehicles slowly traveling all over town. That's probably what it is. We're supposed to get notice when they start doing that work, because that's a contractor, so it won't be in our truck. So it won't be marked. There'll be some rental car, probably, for all we know. So there'll be activity like that starting. I think the very soonest that we could see meter deployment here now, because it's taken so long, is late next year. We were originally supposed to be early next year. It might even be 2025 by the time they could bring in the second group of utilities, which I think is good because it's already clear that there's going to be a lot of heartburn with the first crew trying to deal with all the bumps of figuring out how to do this well. So we'll let them make all the mistakes and we take the pain, and we'll do it in the second group when it's a lot easier and the process is refined. So that's where we are with it. I'm happy to answer questions. Didn't figure I needed to give you a huge update, but we have signed our contract with EPSA and the authority gave us. So we're set to go with them, provided those other two contracts come through. And we'll start moving from there. So there won't probably be much to talk about in the next 6 months at least, on this, but just wanted to, it's been so long, I thought we should actually make an agenda item and bring you up to speed. Any questions?
What's the rest of the funding look like? So 50%
Of is state and 50% is us on our rates.
Yeah.
So it'll be a combination of electric and water rates for that. And
However, we don't know, I mean, yes, it'll be us, but we might not have to do borrowing, we might be able to do it through DEPSA.
we might be able to do the borrowing through VEPSA. They've done these things before, so.
Like the transco stock, and they take out the loan and we're paying like the monthly bill for
We
them.
would definitely capitalize is the point. That's how, so it won't be like we have to come up with 500 grand up front. We'll borrow it either through a VEPSA loan or through one we bring to you. We'll capitalize that over the life of these meters are telling us are good for 15, 20 years. We'll have to figure out what the right schedule is, and then we'll capitalize them over that period of time. So it'd be pretty affordable.
what's the long-term maintenance kind of thing? Was it the same company that's deploying? Are they responsible for?
No, we'll have to maintain them, but we'll buy all of our parts and things from them. They say, for example, on the water meters, which are just the boxes on the outside of the house, that they guarantee their batteries for 15 years in those devices, which is longer than the ones we have now generally. A lot, it's about the same as the last thing, I guess. But if we have, we'll have a stock of parts here, and as things break, we'll, you know, kind of know how to just order them up through Clara and get new parts in. And so there'll definitely be some of that will have to be ongoing costs. Like we do with our current meters, honestly, he's always got parts that he needs, so.
And on the batteries, if something happens with that equipment, they typically prorate.
Yeah.
You know, what your usage was out of it.
Right.
Any training that has to go on for you guys to?
Be tons of it. They were laying that out at this kickoff meeting we had. Kevin wasn't at that one, but they've got, I don't know, there's 4 or 5 meetings to go through, and then there's 4 or 5 trainings to go through of different types that different people will have to go to, including some with the people actually doing the installs of the various technology. So there was a big long list there.
Yeah, spread out over the different operations, whether it's billing or field operations.
That's right.
Install meter reading.
And then 50% funding, is that something that could change?
I don't think it can be worse than 50 at this point. Again, we gotta get the PUC approval on that, but right now it doesn't look like it would be worse than that. It could even come out a little bit higher at the end of the day. But we got a percentage of the funding. One reason it might come out higher is, you know, Hardwick is for whatever reason declining to be included in anything right now. And so all of the economics were built with Hardwick in, and now Hardwick's out, but the money's coming. So that's gonna be distributed among the rest of us. So fine, wanna drop out, go ahead, we'll take more money. You know, but for whatever reason, they seem to be dropping out of a lot of things right now. So don't know what that means, but. Good, yeah, so.
Get on to the management update.
Anything on the categories you want to chat about?
Oh, yeah, all hands on deck there on Prairie Bridge Street. Everybody out there.
It has been a struggle. Everybody is sprinting to the finish line to get their projects done before snow flies, and
Yeah.
Grays has done great work for us in the past, but they just weren't even picking up the phone. So unfortunately, we saw Slayton's doing work over the Catholic Church. I got a hold of him yesterday and he was there today, so thank God that's done.
Was Kenny Grimes in there? Or-
Grimes did the excavation. Yeah. In fact, he made a few calls on our behalf and they're up straight.
Yeah. No,
So that's good to have that done.
What was the, just typical,
Yeah, it was a 100-year-old cast iron 4-inch line, main line.
Okay.
And we thought for sure it'd be a court on the line, but no, it was a whole road. Somehow there was a hole right through the top of the 4-inch, just a little round, not a crack. We thought it'd be something radial or lateral, and so we put a 18-inch sleeve around it and got out of there. Then we found a 6-inch sewer main right under the yellow lines that we didn't know existed, and we found another 2-inch line that we didn't know what it was. So we had the one problem to deal with, and got out of there and made notes of everything.
was anything bad with active lines? Anybody?
The one that was leaking obviously was, but the 2-inch, we wanted to drill a hole and see what came out of it. You know, we didn't have a turn for gears with it. So, if it was charged and active, we wanted to know it. But,
Yeah.
Where it, I mean, nobody's been in that road for 100 years.
Yeah.
For that, so it's always a interesting once we start digging.
How are we doing on unaccounted water usage? What's our, has that gone up?
I haven't-
used to get a chart.
Yeah, I haven't run those numbers in a while. I need to.
I don't know.
I
maybe
do
that's
a
something.
comparison, just, it's not exactly the same, doesn't take into everything that he would account for, it's just literally the pump versus the sales, and it's 30-ish%, I think was maybe.
It fluctuates so much.
It does fluctuate from month to month, because again, there's always a timing, because our billing is based on cycle reading, and the well is based on monthly, and it does make a difference.
this is one of the nice things when we update to the AMI with the new meters, they'll all get read on one day, and it can be the last day of the month. So we'll actually be able to sync up the data
One at a time.
when we get done with this, so that we can tell exactly what, we'll get rid of this, we're out of phase, we're out of cycle stuff. That's historically been a problem, we intend to structure this so that, you know, we pull that data on the last day of the month, so that or the first day of the month, I guess would be the more, whichever. We'll sync
We'll
it
chat
up.
about that because of billing cycles, but yeah, we
Yeah.
can definitely pull the information for reporting for sure.
So that'll be good for us.
Because we could do the same thing with
Yeah.
losses with
Try.
electric.
Can you just give a quick, Kevin, overview of the two, the Katy Falls and Morrisville hydro generation, everything status, you know, are we running both?
Morrisville, both units are operated, the whole plant is operational
Yeah, at a low
Except-
level.
at a low level because of the flooding damage that still needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Well, once the dredging is started and we can dewater the gatehouse and dewater the penstocks and get a look at some of the damage we can't assess until the water's out in the gatehouse, but both units are running. ERG got the thrust bearing, not thrust bearing, the bearing that had gone bad on the 600 unit, so both are running great. We just can't run them full bore. We'll draw some of that stuff from this side of the dam down into the penstocks. Case Falls, ERG was back up today or this week. I know Ken was out with family emergency stuff last week, but they've been sandblasting with dry ice rice. They have rice that's at whatever temperature dry ice is, and that's what they're using to clean up all the coils and the stator and all that stuff, so.
That's the vertical.
Yeah. So still waiting for word on the thrust bearing on the horizontal and when they can get that done.
What's the rice for environmental impact?
I think you don't want to damage the coating on the coils, so I think they were using just dry ice chips before, and this is the first time I've heard about the rice part, so.
All right.
So I'm sorry, is it actual rice or just the size
I
of
heard
rice?
rice, I haven't seen it, but they had a giant pallet.
One of the things we've learned from FEMA, which is interesting and gets to your point, Carl, is we don't know if we'll be successful, but both for Winter Storm Elliott and for the flooding, we've been told we can submit for lost revenue for generation. So I've done an estimate for both of what we've already lost based on, you know, averages factored up for the very good water year we've had this year, and also tried to estimate when I think they'll both be fully online. So we should be able to, at least what we're being intimated by FEMA right now, doesn't make promised payment, but they encouraged us to submit for lost revenue. So we're submitting for lost revenue, just so you know.
Is that the overtime too? Is that part of that?
This is just on the generation side that I'm talking about, so not on the repair side. That's a different piece. We're already submitting on that. This is just, basically the argument was, they looked at us and said, well, you had to buy more power from the market, right? And we said, yeah. They said, well, then you should submit those extra costs. The trick is, how do you estimate how much we would have generated? And will they accept the methodology? So we've written that up, and then we'll see what they say.
It was all the highway, right?
Well, so what I did was, I don't know if they'll accept it, but I took our 10-year averages, which skews in our benefit, because we've been a little bit in decline. And then this year, we're, based on precipitation gauges and stuff, we're just, the generation has been up about 50% based on available water. So I took the 10-year average and factored it up 50%. And used that as the number times our average rate that we pay for power supply. I didn't try to go high or low on that, I just took that average for what we buy power supply at, and that's what I submitted. But the memos I've given Penny, I don't know that it's been submitted yet, but she's got the memos on those. So it gets to your question about that, Carl.
During that FEMA inspection the other day, the 8 or 9 days we were without water, there's a flat rate we can charge or get reimbursement for each customer.
Oh, wow, okay,
At those days, and Richard mentioned that, and he's gonna be part of that
great,
crew going forward, so one thing to make note.
great.
And did you say you've been generating at Green River to keep from overflow?
Yeah. As we have water, yeah.
Yeah.
Caught the October peak shaving, it was like 3 nights in a row, they called for it, so.
Yeah.
Hope it gets hot enough again, and we try to do it.
One thing I'd add to Kevin's report, happened this week, so it was after he wrote this, is, we started our annual drawdown at Elmore. Where folks go in and take care of their dogs and stuff, and so I don't know any more detail than that, I don't know if there's more to say, but.
Yeah, we try to get it down 2 feet over 2 weeks, and the leaves plug it up, or we have to open it, or it rains, and
Oh, that's on the end. So,
And see, you got generators in for evaluation. Is there something that backs up that generator? Do we have anything replacing that generator at the moment?
yeah, well, we have Dave's crew that
Yeah,
we can pull some strings to help us direct their attention to get that power back there if we need to.
yeah.
You could rent one and jump it on there if you need it.
and keep in mind, we made it, Kevin didn't sleep for the last 3 days of it, but we made it almost 5 days during the flood.
Yeah.
Without pumping any water at all. Again, he didn't sleep for most of that time, because he was so worried about the reservoirs. But we've got a lot of capacity in our reservoirs, is the point. We don't usually have outages measured in 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
So. You want to move to electric? Anything you want to highlight, David? Oh.
The bids were received for the gatehouse 2 dredging, and that has been, well, we make some progress and then we get stuck on something else. The latest hurdle that we're trying to get over is the insurance part of the project. The fact that it's a dredging operation is requiring the contractor who won the bid to have coverage, insurance coverage beyond what they normally carry, so that's kind of stopped them from getting in the pond and doing the dredging, but we're working that, we gotta try to do a solution to that problem. MSI was the,
Not surprisingly, so we put this out to like, what, 8 or 10 contractors that we knew could do this type of work. We got one bid, which is just the way everything is in the world today, right? So everybody's busy. And unfortunately, that one bidder is having trouble getting all the insurance they need. So, but we're hopeful we can work it out with them.
wrapping up our busy construction season, and we're moving on to some of our projects, capital projects. We got those breakers have been delivered. I think I told you that they were on their way last time we had a trustee meeting. They are here at sub 3, and we're starting the installation, manufacturing of the installation foundation. It's gonna be steel I-beam set on the existing concrete. And we got our transmission switch at sub 5 has come in. That was a critical piece of our ability to shift our loads back and forth between sub 3 and sub 5. Again, that had a long lead time on it, so we had to wait all year for that to arrive.
When you go out tonight, you'll see that there's new parking lot lights out here. And this group took care of that for us as well. And the purpose of that was really that, we've always had those either on timers or we never even kept the lights on in front of the garage. Well, we just, in today's world, all of a sudden, we'd be leaving meetings and you see 2 cars sitting out near telephone poles, and it's just like better to have some light. But we did buy the ones that only shine down. You notice you won't see a bulb shining out towards people. We bought the cutoff ones. So the lights are on, all night long now. They're all on photocells, and hopefully we haven't heard from neighbors yet. But that's why we took the extra trouble to make the ones that only shine down. We try to be as sensitive as we know we have neighbors, try and be a good neighbor. That's why we never had them on at night before, but we just don't live in the same world we used to live in. Having this place, we accept too much liability when we don't have any lights on in this place at night.
And they're only what, 60 watts each?
They're an LED with the same light, strength as a 50, whatever those were, metal halide or
Yeah.
high pressure sodiums.
Yeah.
Energy light.
The old ones are energy hogs, and these are really, they sip energy. These do.
The lights over at Hannaford parking lot, they're purple.
Yeah.
Is that purposely?
That's
Or is that-
purpose,
is
yeah,
that
you
something-
can order them in different colors.
I didn't know if that was just,
Somebody in Hannaford likes that color, I guess.
Somebody told me, I don't know how truthful this is, but it's to keep things from being shown easily so that folks couldn't do drugs.
Huh?
But I don't know if that's factual.
Because of what?
So that if you were to try to shoot up,
Oh.
the lights themselves keep the veins from being shown. So you have to have,
So if they
Wow.
consider that,
so,
that's
people-
amazing.
yeah, so people can't go into a parking lot. I don't know if that's true.
They're all gonna be coming up here now, because we don't have any lights.
oh, yeah, right, yeah, it's got-
Have you seen the Zachem Bridge in Boston? Bridge that comes down in 93, it's lit, and they change the color of it like every day.
Yeah,
Neat.
you can buy those now, it's not hard.
Hmm.
You just didn't know if that was a.
on purpose, or you just-
St. Patrick's Day, it's pink and.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
One more quick question, on the cameras, I see you can reboot the cameras, reminded me, of- how many places do we have cameras and?
Our two main substations, the ones at the power plant aren't operational, rather.
No.
No, so it's just our sub 3 and sub 5. Oh, and there's one on the back of the.
out here.
Out here, yeah.
It's really grainy though, we gotta upgrade what we have for cameras around here, honestly,
There isn't like the well,
not currently. Kevin and I have talked when we get to doing all the final repairs there, you know, just as another, to be up, so he and the crew can see when floods are coming, we definitely wanna have a camera or two out there. One on the inside to see, prove that our electric equipment didn't get submerged, and one on the outside to see the floods coming. So that we can make sure that we can prove that we close the valve in time, so we don't have to go through this again. So, but that'll come when we actually make the repairs out there.
A little rubber duck on the floor and
There you go.
Yeah.
Crazy what you have to do now.
I think we should have them up on the storage tank too.
Yeah, we should really have a lot more of them. We have to figure out how to be able to power them and send all the data. Yeah, that's the key thing in all these places, so.
Could you power them with solar or no? I guess not there. I guess you would have a.
Should have a battery up there. Should have a battery up there.
Is there solar panel on that, on one?
Yeah, there is.
yeah,
Yeah, we've even talked about, and for days when it's not, since we already have a solar panel up there, we've talked about supplementing that with a vertical axis turbine, or that residential scale vertical axis turbines. But usually if it's not sunny, it's windy,
Yeah.
and you have something, because what we do, it does serve a purpose up there. Certainly that solar, so.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add, other than what's in my report, and just a lot of continuation of stuff, other than. I mean, I guess I did attend the VEPSA meeting on centralized software. Just, we're talking about maybe all. Looking at the same software for financials and for billing. Which will help, like, as we roll out AMI, it certainly, because back to Carl's point of training, like, we're all gonna be be trained on this, the AMI differently. Because our billing systems are different. So,
And then you could have, you know, experts across the offices who can help, so like one person could be an expert on how do you actually get net metering into the billing software, and if we don't know, we could call someone in Swanton. I don't know if they go with this deal or not, or they could call someone here, whichever the case may be, and you'd have expertise spread across all the communities on detail level. Makes a lot of sense. So we'll see if others are open to that. Penny's been incredibly open to it, so. I would just note, she probably won't say it, but this, you know, FEMA continues to just be a massive time sink. You know, and it will be in So it just bogs us down in many ways, and it's necessary because we need to get reimbursement for all this stuff, so it's not that we should just stop, but it's an onerous process, and I would say the flood, the FEMA teams, they assign different teams, and you'd think there's one way to do it, there's not. So the process we're going through, with the floods is way more detail oriented and onerous. My estimation, Penny may or may not agree, I think she'd agree, but than Winter Storm Elliott, and that wasn't easy. And this is just way more onerous, and at least it seems to be shaping up that way. That's what it's worth.
Are we waiting for them to get back to us? Is everything that we've done you're done on your end required? Now it's just a matter of waiting for them to respond. They're still asking,
There's still a lot of back and forth, and, you know, they'll say, we give them information like, okay, we'll put it in the system, and 3 days later, they contact her and say, now you need to put this all in the system. When they had just told us they're gonna do it, so it's that sort of thing, back and forth but back.
the
Is what
timeline
happens.
as far as like, to get things done, is there the deadline?
I mean, the deadline is a year to get the actual work done, but they've assured me that if it needs to go 2 years or 3 years, like we can do extensions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Like, we're still working on the Storm Elliott on the hydro, the horizontal at East Falls.
Yes, money on
Still
that.
trying to get that nailed down to get that reported and the proper paperwork completed for that.
Which was hard, because we couldn't definitively prove that the storm caused it. But it seems like they're gonna play ball with us. We got our consultant to say, we've tested every other possible scenario that would have caused this thing to bump that half an inch that we told you about on the horizontal, and
The fact that it was working before the
and it
storm.
was working right before the storm, it wasn't after, and we've tested everything else we can think of to test, and we're the experts in the field. And we can't come up with anything except the storm did it. So we made them write that on a piece of paper and we submitted it. And it seems like they're gonna accept it, I don't know. We'll
Yeah, I
see.
mean, the thing they're waiting on now is like the actual cost and getting the part in and getting it.
So we're doing all that, so, like I said, that, we're getting there, but it's just tough, right? Every piece is hard.
And that inspection the other day was maybe a third or half of what they need to come back and do again, or.
Yeah, that's even before we can fix it.
Yeah.
So, we'll get there. Anything else for Penny? Don't have too much for you because you read all these. I'm trying to find out, I noted this legislative breakfast is gonna be November 7th in the morning. And trying to find out, we're really hoping to have a more quiet conversation with legislators, so we don't wanna make this a public meeting. So we're trying to figure out, should we only have 2 of you come, so we don't have to warn a trustee meeting? Is there a way within the public meeting law where you guys are all just here as individuals, so it's not a trustee meeting? So I'm, just so you know, I'm gathering advice. I definitely would like to have as many of you as I'm allowed to have at that meeting, and so I'll be doing some outreach with Tom to figure out, you know, how many of you are available and we can bring. But frankly, the dialogue I want to have with the legislators is not one I want 100 people in public sitting around listening to.
Now, is the select board gonna be at this?
Nope, this is just
Okay.
Morrisville Water and Light, and we've invited the 9 legislators that have jurisdiction in our service territory. We'll see how many of them come, but they tend to like to come to these things when you feed them breakfast. So, you know, we want to talk Green River, and we want to talk, you know, all the renewable energy standard going on that they're gonna be forcing down our throats this year, and the clean heat standard, and give them a flood update so that if things start happening there, they know that we have interest, you know, and let them know that they should be pushing back on A&R about encouraging drawdowns, not stopping them. Like, if we had drawn down Green River by 10 feet before the flood, it would have been less water at our 2 dams and in Johnson. You know, but we're not allowed to. So you wanna impact flood control, then actually use where we have reservoirs for flood control. You know, legislature could mandate that. So those kind of topics. Just want them to hear our side of the story before they only hear the advocate side. And so I don't think these things are terribly effective, other than the relationship building we do with legislators. But having no voice versus having little voice is worth a little bit of effort, right? Well, that's what we're gonna try to do, just so you're aware.
And what's the date on that?
November 7th, Tuesday the 7th. Of November, yeah. So, and I'm, like I said, I've got the question out about how we can manage you all, is either it's not a meeting of you all, and you're all here as individuals, and then you all just need to know you're not allowed to talk to each other, at least in more than groups of two, or do we have to limit it to only two of you? So I'm gonna, hopefully we'll have that answer this week, and then I'll get a word out to you all about that.
Then you'll be out of state.
Yeah.
One down.
So, anyway, that was that. And then just an update, I know you've always been interested, Carol, so on Friday, Penny and I will get our final report and score on cybersecurity. And which, you know, I joke about it, but the reason I'm glad we're getting there is then we can actually build a work plan. And start doing something about it. It's been kind of a painful month of just going through meeting after meeting where we just get very politely the crap beat out of us for what we're not doing. Like, we want to get on to doing something about it. And once we get that report, we're potentially eligible for Health and Human Services money, federal money, to help pay for what we need to do to get upgraded on cyber. So, you know, the report, we know it's gonna be bad. I just want to get through that so we can get to doing something about it, so.
I was curious, how did the tabletop exercise go quite well if, you know, everything else doesn't look good?
Well, the interesting thing, well, they basically took you through an example, and the thing is, between Penny and I, we were the ones that did the tabletop. We actually knew what we're supposed to do, it's just not written down.
Oh, I see.
So they kept saying like, we said,
It
well, I have to
wasn't-
ding you because you don't have it written down, but yeah, you guys actually know what you're talking about, like, you know what you should do.
Yeah.
So it went better, that's the only part that went better than we would have expected, in my view, Carl. Like, oh, if you actually had an incident, you wouldn't do all the wrong things, you'd largely get it right. You know, even though you don't have a manual to follow.
Right.
So that did go a little better than anticipated on that part.
I may ask this once before, I don't remember the answer, but are they looking at external, you know, access to
Yeah,
kind
they
of
are.
penetration testing?
Yeah.
and stuff?
I don't know that they're doing penetration right now on the vulnerability assessment, but their recommendations will include all the stuff we have to do with vendors. To make sure that they are compliant as we're hiring them.
Definitely
as
ask
they're doing
those
this.
questions.
They ask us tons of questions about that.
How many people have access to our
And-
data?
Yeah, and stuff.
We passed some of that stuff because of stuff NEPSA has, but mostly we were terribly inadequate. Is what I would say. They might be kinder to us in the words they use, but it never sounded very good to me when I was listening
Well,
to
if
that.
they can help you prioritize, right, where to spend the money first, I guess.
Yeah. No, those are the ones I thought we were talking about.
Is there any other business to come before the board?
Me. I know you want to do an executive session, so if you move to go in, it's section 313A1C, and I don't think the staff need to stay for this, so they can go home and have their evening, so.
We're gonna go into the
Going on.
executive session at 6:39, say aye.
Aye.
That's all right, in the executive session.
Thank you.
Oh, let me pause our, no one's here, but. No one's here, but.
Motion to come out of executive session at 7:15 it was,
I'll second it.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn?
motion to made
Second.
and seconded, any discussion? Meeting adjourned.
Perfect.
7:17.
Brad, I got a question.